Welcome to Aha Moments, the podcast where we explore the breakthroughs and insights that shape our professional journeys. Whether you're a new teacher finding your way or a seasoned educator seeking fresh ideas, we've got you covered. In each episode, we dive into the hearts and the minds of our very own Pinellas County teachers and share challenges, triumphs, tips, and strategies. Get ready to be inspired, learning something new, and experience your very own aha moments. Welcome to Aha Moments. We have a very special episode with us today. We have a guest host. We have Miss Sarah Painter.
Hello, everyone. Sarah Painter. I am the host of the Finding Joy in Education podcast, but I'm joining Robin today for a very special segment.
And we're glad you are here. And we have two wonderful guests. We have Natasha Hall.
Hello.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and where you teach?
Yes, so I am a literacy coach at Fairmount Park Elementary. I coach grades 3 through 5, and I also teach 5th grade.
Excellent. And then Miss Maria Jimenez.
Hi, I'm Maria Jimenez. I'm a 3rd grade teacher at Goffler Elementary. And I'm very excited to be here.
Excellent. Welcome to all of you. We're going to start off with a quote. So, Joy in the classroom isn't just fun. It's about creating meaningful, empowering experiences for students to thrive. So I want to hear a little bit about what this means to each one of you.
Okay, I'll go first.
Sure.
So when I think about that, I think about the students that I've had in the past that are now in 12th grade, and I had them in kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And they don't talk about the lessons we did, but they talk about the experiences. So they'll say, oh, Miss Hall, remember when we made stone soup or when we made green eggs and ham and things like that. So just creating those memorable experiences for them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the times with testing and everything, we forget that kids are just kids and we have to do those fun things like the stone soup and the green eggs and ham, because at the end of the day, that's what they're going to remember. And you don't want them to be thinking, oh my gosh, all those tests we had to take. That's not the memory you want them to leave you with. So it's about balancing both. But
it also shows when we make learning relevant, that's when it sticks. So there was learning behind stone soup and green eggs and ham, right? But it's how you presented it to them that sticks with them. And I think that's the joy of being in a classroom.
Yeah, I was going to say, kind of piggyback off of what you were saying. And for me, it's interesting because I come from a secondary standpoint and we didn't make green egg. I mean, we made ice cream. We did fun things. But it was really, when I read that quote, to me, it is about finding the sweet spot between getting the students finding relevance to the topic and a challenge, like a doable but challenging environment where they are able to succeed. Yes. But it's not just right there. Like they have to work a little for it, So it's like, but that relevance and that personal meaning is so important.
Absolutely.
And green eggs and ham.
Very important.
Yes. All right, let's talk about some strategies. So can either of you or Sarah talk about one small change that you've done that's made a big impact with student engagement?
I feel like recently I've started to look, instead of just planning for the week, I kind of plan for the month and kind of find those gaps where I can insert more of those fun activities. So, for example, we're doing text structure. This is our 3rd time doing text structure in this unit. So now I'm like, okay, what can we do that's more engaging than just the regular chronological timeline? What could be more entertaining that it's reviewing the same content we've been going over, but kind of extends it further and provides that fun and joyous opportunity for them to explore that benchmark in a more engaging way. So that's...
Do you have like an example of something that you've done?
Yeah. So for example, we were working on text structure, and the one that we were doing before that we did with Edward Tulane was figures of speech. So we had been reviewing it since the beginning of the year, and they were kind of like at their heads about it. So we did a Jeopardy with Edward Tulane. So I pulled like different things from the book and then put them in different categories based on the different names that Edward goes through and has. And they just would pick a category and then mount. So that was really fun. It took like 40 minutes, but they enjoyed it so much. It was very competitive, but I did tell them like there's no prize. It was just like a lot of collaborating.
And it's approaching the same content from a different angle. So,
but what I hear is intentionality. So you plan for joy. And you plan for it by looking at a bigger picture sometimes than just what you're doing. Because when you go day by day, y'all know we get caught up in that day by day, right? And things happen and things unfold. But when you can look at it through a larger scope, like you're doing, Maria, and plan for that joy and be intentional about it, I think that's the change maker.
Yeah.
And so I'll share one at the end of a module. I allow my students to show their learning in a way that they want.
Yes.
So they love Canva. Some of them like posters. They create videos. So just giving them that student voice and choice is one way.
Yeah.
I love that. I have to try that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So are there any go-to strategies that either of you use if you like in the moment? So planning ahead, fantastic. You plan for it. That intentionality, Sarah, that you were talking about, really important. But if you just see the lesson, you see the students becoming disengaged, is there any like go-to things that you strategies that you pull in to bring up the energy?
Yes, sometimes, especially in 5th grade, we have long lessons. The rigor is up there. So when I see that they're getting a little lethargic, they know, okay, I'm getting ready to put on some music.
Yep.
And you get to walk around, go say hello to someone, just a little brain break. So that works in the moment.
And it builds community too. So I've seen glimpses of your classroom, Natasha, and I follow you on social media. And so I see the community that you've built. And I think that that's intentional too, though. Like you think about your babies, you think about your kids all the time and how to keep them engaged. And so that shines through. And I think that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like I do a lot of response-based things. So if things are getting kind of boring, instead of just giving out the answer, okay, let's do 4 corners, defend your choice.
Yes.
Or, okay, let me bring out the little voter whiteboard.
Yes.
Let's do that. So even little things, when you are noticing that things are getting kind of a drag, just getting them up for those 2-3 questions that are left, and it gives
Something about a whiteboard
oh my god,
it just changes the engagement.
It does.
It's magic.
Especially if there's colors involved.
I mean,
now it's like you
colors,
really up the stakes.
Absolutely.
But I think of myself as an adult learner too. When the presenters allow movement, when they allow us to get up, when they allow us to process, right? And that's what you're doing in your classroom. So it works for all ages, secondary and elementary for sure.
Absolutely.
I do find also that the way that you present what you're teaching or the activity also affects the amount of joy. I try to approach like, oh my gosh, you guys, we're gonna do the most something ever, and they just like, they're like, wait,
they'll eat it up if you act like, oh yeah, if you act like it's the best thing, they're like, I'm here for it, let's do it.
Even if it's like after a boring lesson, I'm like, let me just hype up this worksheet that we're gonna do, and we'll add like whatever other response. I do a lot of there's like a hundreds chart, and then at the end, however many they get right, they put their name on it, and that's so easy to put up. It's just like they put it up, they write their name on it, and it's just like quick and fun.
I think it's a really good, like, important point about how, like, you as the teacher set that tone. For joy, for excitement about the content, for all of that. I think that's a really, really important point. Sometimes my students would be like, settle down. You're getting really excited about chemistry.
Too much fun.
I know. It's great. So are there any specific success stories that you can think of? Like going way back, you guys have talked a little bit around it, but anything where you just look back and you're like,
my favorite thing I've done is at the end of the year, we connect perimeter and area with building like a little model paper house. Okay. And it's the most low cost activity that you can do, but they're so engaged. And I'm at a point now where I've been at the school for 5 years and I've got a lot of siblings. There's a lot of siblings in my school. And every year when I get a new one, every time we get a new student, they'll be, I get a student from those siblings to be like, when are we going to make the house?
They already know.
They have the house.
Legendary.
So they always ask about it. I'm like, oh, do you have to wait till the end of the year? It's our unit at that time.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I'll say one memorable experience was from last year. I was attached to 4th grade. So I taught 4th grade and we read Esperanza Rising. And that book is, it's a lot of conflict, a lot of perseverance, but we celebrated how the families persevered and came together. And we had the piñata, we had the different food just to celebrate the Mexican culture. And so they loved it. Loved it.
That's so great. That's so great.
That really is fantastic. What about you, Sarah?
So I just think about all those times that we brought in food. Yes. So my last few years
My
in that
mind went
classroom.
right to food also in some of my personal experiences.
My last few years in the classroom were in 5th grade. And those are just, it's the funnest age. I absolutely love, like, they still love school. They're eager to please. And when you create a safe place for them, you see the child side of them. And so food is just one of those things that everyone can relate to. And so we did like an enrichment program at Eisenhower where we would stop, and for 20 minutes they'd go to an enrichment group, and we did cooking in my class. And by cooking, I mean like we decorated cookies sometimes, or I taught them how to make mac and cheese. So we did things that maybe they wouldn't normally do at home, but then also what's in their cabinets at home that I can just show them practically how to make that. So that's what I think of. I think of food and how food brings joy to everyone's classroom.
It really does. I think you're onto something. Yes. All right. So let's get into something a little bit more challenging. So what happens, or how do you try to create joyful learning experiences and joyful moments while you're balancing pacing and testing and all of those demands?
Just putting the children first. So when you know your why, the mission, vision, you have no choice but to do that. Life is hard, but our students deserve that. And especially at my school, they have a lot of trauma, things like that. So I am very intentional every day to just make sure in the moment there is joy. You will feel safe. You will feel happy in this classroom.
It's like you have to look in the mirror every morning and say, it's not about you today.
Nope,
it is not. And it's just, spoiler alert, it's never about you. It's always about what you create for those students in your room.
Yeah.
We have I think a similar population at Gulfport. It's just a lot of that trauma. And being in 3rd grade, it's funny because you always have the pressure of the retention.
Sure.
And that's really scary for me because I don't want to, just knowing the statistics of retention and how bad it can be for a child, it puts a lot of pressure on me. And I feel like when I do my worst job teaching is when that's in my head, when I'm constantly thinking, I have to get through this benchmark, I don't want to. So when I take that pause and just think, okay, they're 9 years old. They're 8 years old.
Right.
They're not thinking about that. They're really just come here almost as a safe space to learn, yes, but also to get a break from whatever's going on at home, to get a meal, to have just a moment to breathe and be a kid. So usually at this time of year is when a lot of that stuff gets pulled out because now they've learned to be independent in my classroom. So now they know the procedures, they know the vibe, they know what they're supposed to do. So it's just so much easier because we did all that front load work of setting procedures and routines, which I feel like are top most priority in the first half of the year. Now we have time to do more of that fun stuff. They know what activities we do. They know all of that. So now let's really bring out the fun, the Jeopardies, all those things. And yes, infusing them in the beginning. But since I'm so much more about the structure those first month, 2 months really, by the time that we get to this point, you're seeing them bud. The second half of the year, you really see their personality shine. You see their true potential and them reaching it. So,
but Maria, it's also because of the systems you put in place. So when you put those structures and systems and you take the time on the front end to do that, you do get to that sweet spot in the year where you hand it over and you are now facilitator. You are not up there lecturing or teaching. You are facilitating the learning and they are driving. And I think that's what you're talking about. And that's what I love too. It's pouring into the front end so that you can get to this point.
Which ties into what you were saying about giving them that choice.
Yes.
And maybe not the choice of activity in that moment, but the choice of where to sit.
Yes.
Who they can partner up with. Yes.
Well, and while both of you were talking about keeping the why in the front and that driving kind of like how you're going to plan your lesson, it just made me think about how you people in general acquire knowledge and have to, and I've heard there's an analogy that like knowledge is Velcro, like your prior knowledge. So you can keep hitting them with like reading strategies or math facts. And if there's nothing to stick it to because they don't have the background knowledge or they don't have the prior academic knowledge, it's not going to stick. So providing and thinking of the child, of who they are, of what they need, and keeping that just reminded me of that sort of analogy of like, of knowledge is Velcro. And as you're creating experiences and as you're creating some of this, like this depth, it's going to give, now you're going to give a math fact or you're going to give, the story, and it's going to stick to something, and all those experiences that you're creating are building that up for their future too, which I just think is beautiful. Okay, so let's look at maybe acknowledging that sometimes things don't always go like we think they're going to go. So have you ever planned for a joyful teaching experience and it didn't go as planned? How did you handle it?
Like
what happened?
I swear this at least once a week where I'm like, that didn't really work out. I think the first thing I reflect on is how I taught it. Like, did I teach it right? Did I give explicit directions? Were they written down so they could reference them? I kind of first backtrack onto myself and think, where could I have done something wrong? If for somehow a miracle I didn't do anything wrong, then I gotta think, okay, maybe this was the wrong audience, because if I've tried this before and it didn't work with this group, maybe I didn't think to cater it better to them, or maybe it just wasn't a right activity for them.
Right.
I know lots of teachers are like, oh, I don't do a lot of stuff on the carpet because they're messy or whatever. So you kind of have to know your audience, what you're presenting to, and then reflect on yourself too. Okay, what could I have done better?
Yeah.
Or what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
I've been doing this for a while, so when it's going down, like I can see, like, okay, this is not working. Just adjust in the moment.
Yes.
And I try not to scrap the entire lesson. Just make some little small tweaks, and then they don't know. So
They don't know what was on that lesson plan.
So stay positive and just keep it moving.
Yeah. I love that reflective piece, Maria, because I think that's what a master teacher does. But not just that, I think it's also owning it in front of the kids. Like, I've had to say, this did not go well. I do not feel proud of what's happened. Let's stop right here and regroup.
Yes,
and I think what you're modeling is that being coachable.
Yes.
We want our students to be coachable, but as adults, we need to be coachable as well and say that this didn't go as planned.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's like the most powerful, that transparency with your students. It can be just a game changer in terms of them like buying into what you're selling, sort of thing. You going, I thought this was going to be amazing, and this was not what we were expecting. I think that's fantastic. It's funny, Maria, because you were like, I first am reflective, and that was not my natural go-to. I'm first like, what? That was supposed to be, and then it's like, wait. It's like, everybody failed the test. I'm like, duh.
Right. If it's not the fish, it's the water. Come on, people.
Yeah, it's, I mean, it would just, that night, it would be like, nope, now, 'cause it's almost always we can do something better. All right, we're going to be wrapping up here quickly, but want to get to some little, if you're going to teach a teacher, you're going to give you 5 minutes to focus on joy tomorrow. What would you recommend?
I'm gonna let you first. Let's start with this one because I gotta think.
Say that one more time, Rob.
Okay, you have a new teacher.
Okay.
They're like, I'm going to do this. I am going to bring joy into my classroom tomorrow. They have 5 minutes. What would you do? What would you have them do?
Or what would you have them think about? Like, you've already said it's about the kids. So what would that look like? How would you tell a teacher to make it about the kids in 5 minutes or less?
I just think about, for me, I know all of my kids. So thinking about the kids, what do they enjoy? You know what? I would say making it relevant to them. So I try to find, like, what's the cool thing on TikTok or something that I can make relatable to them. Yes. And then that just gets them all hyped up.
Yes, that's perfect.
I keep going back, and it sounds like the most boring thing. I'm so sorry, but I keep going back to structure. Like, and maybe it's just because I'm a control freak, but like, if you don't really know everything down to a T, then how are you going to be prepared when something does go wrong that doesn't have anything to do with the preparation, but it's a kid having a misconception or a kid not getting along with a partner. And that's also with
knowing your kids, being aware.
Switching things in the moment. If you don't really know what you're going to be doing and how the activity is supposed to roll out and all this stuff, how are you supposed to make that switch? So I would tell, as boring as it sounds, be prepared. Do your work beforehand so the kids can focus on the work they're supposed to be doing and not the work you were supposed to do before.
And then you can pivot in real time if you need to.
Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you guys for our wonderful, robust discussion. I would happily sit in all of your classes and feel like I'm going to relearn 3rd grade or 5th grade very, very well. All right. But before we go, we're going to do a quick lightning round. These are a couple or that questions. Natasha, we're going to start with you. You don't even get to think about it. It's going to be nice and fast.
Okay.
Books or podcasts?
Podcast.
Yes, that's the right answer. No.
Know your audience.
Outdoor learning or cozy classroom vibe?
Cozy classroom vibes.
Parent-teacher partnerships or community development?
parent-teacher partnership.
Okay. Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
Hard to not do. Spring break, road trip, or a staycation?
Staycation.
All right.
Okay, Maria, it's your turn.
Okay.
All right, coffee or tea?
Tea.
Okay.
Okay.
That was incorrect. Okay. Field trips or school spirit day?
Field trips.
Okay, fun.
Ooh.
Brave, yes. Real-time feedback or after-class reflections?
Real-time feedback.
Yeah, good. Group collaborations or individual creativity?
Individual.
There's the structure. There's our structure.
Yep. Music on or silence during planning?
During planning.
Music on? All right.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to thank all of you guys for joining us on Aha Moments. We're going to follow this discussion up with Sarah's Finding Joy. So stay tuned and be sure to listen to that. And everyone join us next time on another Aha Moments.
Okay. Thank you.